The room breathes, doesn't it?
It does.
Its walls whisper, the tales our waking minds try so hard to silence. Tonight, let's listen. Let's explore those landscapes of the night.
Okay. Because lately, the nights have held this certain weight.
Oh, wait.
Yeah, like a feeling that something's just out of sight,
Yeah.
lingering, in the shadows.
Ah, that stirring beneath the surface, that unseen presence. It speaks a language much older than words, doesn't it? You've felt this too, the sense of something just beyond perception.
Oh, definitely. It's under there.
Under where?
Under the bed. In the darkness. I mean, I don't see it clearly, ever, but I absolutely feel it.
How does it feel?
Like a coldness that just settles in the air. And this tightening right here in my chest.
Mm-hmm.
It never gets a proper shape. It's always just kind of on the edge of becoming something I could recognize. But it never quite gets there.
So the shadows dance. They're always in motion, refusing to be pinned down, to be defined. This creature, let's call it that for now, as you perceive it, it seems to thrive in that murky space, right? That gap between what you know and what you fear.
Yeah.
It's almost as if actually naming it, giving it a solid form, would somehow lessen its power over you. Yet the mind itself seems to pull back from doing just that, from identifying it precisely.
And that is the strangest part, honestly. While it fills me with this deep, deep unease, there's also this odd sense of familiarity.
It's familiarity, yeah.
Like a half-forgotten song or something. It feels totally alien, obviously frightening, but also somehow known, like way down deep.
Perhaps a whisper from the labyrinth of your own past.
Maybe.
An echo, maybe, from a time when the world felt just huge, immense. And every shadow, every corner held some kind of hidden possibility, both wonderful and quite frightening.
Yeah, I remember that feeling.
So this presence, it comes back, not as a clear memory you can pinpoint, but as this really potent symbol, like a vessel, holding everything that's been pushed down, relegated to the deeper parts of your mind. And even the quietest moments at night, they seem to amplify this feeling, don't they? The house settling around you, the wind outside.
Oh, absolutely. Even the tiniest sounds. A little creak in the floorboards, as the house cools down.
Right.
Or the curtains just rustling softly in a breeze. They stop being just sounds. They feel like signals or hushed warnings that it's there.
Indeed. The ordinary suddenly becomes loaded with significance.
Yeah.
The settling house, the rustling fabric, and the silent language of the night, especially when the gates of our conscious mind are, let's say, less guarded. These everyday things can become like pronouncements from the unconscious.
Pronouncements.
Yeah, the deeper currents of your psyche, finding a way to speak. So this feeling, this presence under the bed, it isn't a literal monster waiting to grab your ankle, is it? It feels like something else entirely.
Okay, so it can't actually physically hurt me. It's more about what it means, what it represents, what it makes me feel inside.
Precisely. Exactly that. It reveals truths
Yep.
about yourself, about aspects of your inner world that maybe consciously you'd prefer to keep hidden, veiled.
Okay.
The anxiety it brings up. That could just be a form, a shape given to, say, unresolved anger. Or maybe feelings of shame you carry, or even longings, deep desires that remain unacknowledged. I can hear a tension in your voice, actually.
Really?
Yeah, like a desire to understand this thing, but at the same time, a really strong urge to just make it go away, banish it.
There's this really insistent pull, this curiosity that makes me want to look, to try and understand what this presence is trying to tell me. But then there's also this other feeling, this powerful, almost like primal urge to just shut my eyes tight, pull the covers right over my head, and just will it to disappear.
Okay, but notice something interesting. Notice the subtle shift that happens even as you speak about observing it, about trying to understand it.
What shift?
The nature of the presence itself, it seems to soften, doesn't it? To move maybe from feeling like an external threat to something more internal, more reflective of your own state. Did you feel that shift happen just now as you were talking?
Actually, yeah. Huh. The air in the room. It does feel different somehow.
How so?
Lighter, maybe. Less oppressive. Even the shadows, like in the corners of my eyes, they seem less sharp now. Less defined.
Interesting. A space is opening up inside you. A space for contemplation. Not necessarily providing clear answers right away, but allowing for the gentle stirring of questions.
Oh.
So think back. When you first felt this presence, what did you instinctively, deep down, expect to find if you could suddenly see it clearly? What was the real fear? What were you truly afraid of encountering? And as you sit with this feeling now, this slightly lighter feeling, where do you sense its origins might lie? Where does it feel like it comes from?
I do try to trace it back sometimes, like following a really faint thread, and there are these fragmented images that pop up. Fleeting impressions from when I was much, much younger.
Oh, okay.
Times when emotions just felt overwhelming.
Yeah.
Too big for me to contain or understand.
Yes. This creature of the night, this undefined presence, it often isn't something newly created, is it? It's frequently woven from the very fabric of our earliest memories, those raw, unfiltered sensations of childhood. They leave such profound imprints on our developing psyche.
Right.
So what kind of overwhelming feelings seem to connect with those early impressions you mentioned?
Well, what kind of hidden things could take this shadowy form?
Yeah.
Is it? Maybe unspoken anger or desires that felt, I don't know, forbidden back then, feelings that I was somehow wrong to even have.
Think of it like getting a glimpse behind a curtain in your early life, a stirring inside you that you didn't have the words for yet. You couldn't name it or understand it back then.
Right, I wouldn't have.
But those formative moments, they can plant seeds deep in the unconscious. And those seeds can later blossom in really unexpected ways, like this presence. Does the feeling of this presence connect somehow with those early times that felt too big, too much to handle?
That looming shadow feeling. Sometimes it definitely carries a sense of disapproval.
Disapproval.
Like an unseen person is watching me, silently judging my actions, or maybe even just my thoughts.
Okay.
But then other times, it feels like something intensely tempting.
Tempting.
Like it's promising some weird kind of satisfaction, but one that also feels really dangerous. Like crossing a line I shouldn't cross.
Yes. Unresolved inner conflicts. They often wear disguises, don't they? Especially in the theater of the mind, in dreams or feelings like this. The judging shadow you mentioned, the alluring temptation. These can absolutely be masks. Masks worn by buried tensions, by opposing desires inside you that haven't found peace or reconciliation.
Okay.
What about that experience as a child of wanting things you felt you couldn't have or weren't allowed to want?
And what about those yearnings? The ones that felt just inherently wrong somehow. The desires you just knew you weren't supposed to have. I mean, as a kid, there were so many unspoken rules, right? So many invisible boundaries you're just supposed to understand.
Absolutely. And longing for connection, for power, for understanding, even just the vulnerability of needing other people. These are fundamental human experiences. They're core to us. But when these fundamental needs or feelings are suppressed early on or denied or maybe met with disapproval, they can sometimes twist. They can morph into something that feels alien and frightening inside us, in our inner world. It's truly remarkable, isn't it? And often quite unsettling how deeply those early formative years continue to resonate within us, even now.
It's so strange, yeah. How those early years can still feel so present, so palpable, even decades later.
Well, parts of us, especially the parts that experienced really intense emotions without having the capacity back then to fully process them, they can remain sort of frozen in time. In a sense, yes. So the adult who finds themselves trembling in the darkness might very well be echoing the vulnerability, the fear of the child they once were, the child within. Do you recall any specific feelings associated with being alone at night during your childhood? Any particular memories or sensations?
I do remember lying awake in the dark, listening really hard for the sound of footsteps outside my bedroom door.
What did you feel then?
Just this confusing mix of anticipation, kind of hoping for comfort maybe, but also this deep underlying anxiety about what might be out there in the quiet house.
Yes. The figures from our childhood parents, caregivers, they often loom incredibly large in our inner landscape, don't they? And their symbolic shadows can evolve over time, mirroring our own complex, sometimes contradictory feelings towards authority, towards guidance, towards protection itself. What feelings come up for you now when you consider the person who was your main source of comfort and care in those early years?
Well, even that person, the one who provided that essential comfort, even that feeling, their presence, could be overwhelming sometimes. You know?
I thought so.
Like being held so tightly, it actually felt difficult to breathe sometimes, like too much closeness.
Ah, I see. The line can certainly blur, can't it? Between the embrace that soothes and comforts and the embrace that perhaps completely unintentionally, smothers or constrains
Right.
these complex emotional dynamics, the very foundations of how we first learn to attach to others. They can also become woven into the fabric of these symbolic night creatures we encounter. It all gets mixed together in the unconscious. Have you ever noticed a connection between your own physical sensations, like when you shift in bed, and the feeling of this presence moving or shifting too?
Yes. Actually, yes. It's a really strange mirroring effect.
Tell me more.
Like when I shift my weight, or maybe just move my arm, I sometimes get this really distinct sense that it shifts too. Down there, in the darkness beneath me.
Ah, so not two separate things, but deeply intertwined, connected.
Yeah, it feels that way.
This presence, it knows your fears so intimately because, in a very real symbolic sense, it is a part of you. A projection, perhaps, of anxieties, maybe unmet needs that are seeking acknowledgement from you.
Seeking acknowledgement.
Are there any recurring sensations or images? Things that consistently come along with this feeling of a presence?
There are definitely themes, yeah. Certain things that keep coming back, like fragments of a dream I keep having but can't quite remember.
Like what?
Like a persistent sense of being locked out of somewhere important. Or a feeling that something vital is missing but I don't know what. And this frustrating inability to see clearly, like there's always a veil just beyond reach.
Locked doors, missing keys, obscured faces or scenes. Yes, these are potent symbols. A kind of fragmented narrative being whispered directly from your unconscious. You mentioned earlier the idea of naming this presence.
Yeah, you suggested that giving it a name might somehow diminish its power. But what kind of name are we talking about here? Like a specific word, a label?
Not necessarily a literal label, like something you'd find in a field guide to monsters, no. More of a symbolic naming.
Okay.
It could be a word or maybe a phrase, even an image. Something that somehow captures the core essence of the feeling for you. It's the act of recognition itself, bringing even a flicker of conscious light to that inner darkness. That act can shift your relationship to it. What image or word or feeling comes closest to capturing its essence for you right now in this moment?
Let me think. Maybe? The Watcher, or the Wait.
Okay. The Watcher. The Wait, stay with those. So instead of just being afraid, instinctively pushing it away, should you maybe try to engage with it?
Engage how? Like ask it questions, in my mind.
Yeah.
Try to understand what it might be trying to communicate.
You could try that, but listen closely. Not necessarily for a verbal answer, but for the subtle language of your own body. Yes, pay attention to that tightening in your stomach you mentioned, or the quickening of your pulse, maybe a trembling in your limbs. These physical sensations, they can be profound clues. They're like the answers whispered in the body's own language.
Okay.
So, considering everything we've explored, what if this presence isn't inherently malevolent? What if its purpose isn't actually to harm you?
Maybe. Maybe it really isn't actively trying to hurt me. Perhaps its presence is much more about my own feelings than about some external threat out there.
Exactly. Think of it perhaps as a shadow self.
A shadow self.
A part of you that carries the weight of maybe denied or rejected aspects of your own personality, things you don't like or are afraid of in yourself. And it appears in this shadowy form, not necessarily to attack, but maybe to offer those hidden pieces back to you.
Offer them back.
Yes, in the hope of integration, of achieving a greater sense of wholeness within yourself. How does that resonate with you right now?
Yes, it feels different now, definitely. As we've been talking about it, the intensity of the feeling has really lessened. It feels quieter now, somehow further away than it did when we started.
The tide of the unconscious, you could say, begins to recede, leaving behind these whispers of understanding, these subtle shifts in perspective. A realization starts to dawn, perhaps, that what you fear so much may have never truly resided outside of yourself. There's often a kind of liminal space in these moments, isn't there? A feeling of being suspended between worlds.
Yes, that's exactly it. It really feels like I'm between worlds right now. Still feeling those lingering echoes of the night's unease, definitely. But the familiar shapes in my room, they're becoming clear now as morning gets closer.
One foot still sort of dipped in that fluid realm of symbols, the other gently stepping towards the solid ground of waking consciousness. Clarity.
Yeah.
Doesn't always arrive in a sudden flash, does it? Often it comes more like soft ripples, settling gradually over time.
Yeah.
What emotions are lingering with you now as this present seems to be receding?
Well, there's definitely a sense of relief, a lifting of that initial weight, for sure. But underneath that, there's also this strange, almost melancholic sadness.
Relief in the act of facing what was hidden, yes. And perhaps a gentle sadness in acknowledging those vulnerable parts of yourself, the parts that this presence represents. Growth often demands that kind of vulnerability, doesn't it? A willingness to sit with uncomfortable truths. Notice the quality of the light now, how it's changing as the first hints of dawn start to paint the edges of the sky outside.
The light, yeah, it's definitely coming in through the window more now. The familiar outlines, the furniture in my room, it's all much clearer, sharper.
The physical world reasserts itself, bringing definition and form back to your surroundings. But the symbolic realm, the realm of the night, it often leaves a residue, doesn't it? A lingering whisper in your thoughts, a subtle shift in your internal landscape. It's a curious phenomenon, really, how intensely real these night feelings can be, even as they begin to fade with the light of day.
It really is strange. Something that felt so visceral, so undeniably present just a while ago, can seem to just dissipate as I become more awake.
Think of dreams and maybe these night visitations too as a kind of metaphor. Metaphor cloaking deeper truths about ourselves, inviting us to take a more oblique approach to self-understanding, maybe.
Okay.
The emotional traces that are left behind, they're like breadcrumbs. Subtle invitations to listen more closely to that quiet, often unheard inner voice. What feels most important for you to hold on to from this particular experience as it fades?
I think right now I just need to sit with this feeling for a while without immediately trying to analyze it anymore.
Okay.
Just observe it maybe. See where it naturally leads without forcing it.
Observe it with the same quiet curiosity you might observe the dawn breaking. That's a beautiful approach. There's no single right answer to decipher here, only the unfolding truth of your own unique experience. How does your body feel now as you begin to move more fully into wakefulness? Slowly coming back into my physical senses more. Feeling the actual weight of the blanket on my skin again, the cool air on my face. Reconnecting.
A gradual reintegration, not a sharp separation. The threads of the dream, the echoes of that presence, they're still held within you, even as the physical world reclaims your primary attention.
Yeah.
Do you think this feeling or maybe aspects of it might surface in other ways throughout your day-to-day?
I kind of have a sense that I might notice echoes of it.
Yeah?
In unexpected moments.
Like what? Maybe.
Maybe. A fleeting shadow I see out of the corner of my eye. Or a particular sound that just triggers that familiar feeling of unease for a second.
Okay. If that happens, try to resist the immediate urge to just look away or dismiss it.
Okay.
Instead, perhaps just pause for a breath and gently ask yourself, what might this fleeting feeling want to show me right now? What might I need to remember from the landscape of the night? It really seems that these night visitations, they aren't necessarily threats we need to banish, are they? But maybe attempts at communication, however unsettling they might feel at the time.
So, it's not something to instinctively fear and push away, but something to maybe enter into a kind of dialogue with, in its own symbolic language.
Exactly. Riddles, rhymes, gestures, silences. The unconscious speaks in a language all its own. It's often trying to provoke questions within us, to stir those hidden currents that might otherwise remain completely dormant. Even as the intensity of the feeling fades now with the morning light, its impact can linger beneath the surface.
Yes, definitely. Even now, as the feeling itself is much less intense, it really feels like something subtle has shifted inside me, even if I can't yet fully articulate what that shift actually is.
A subtle realignment, a softening of some inner resistance, perhaps, an opening towards a deeper understanding, an understanding that often lives in those quiet spaces between words and conscious thought.
Yeah.
The monster under the bed, perhaps never truly a monster in the way we first imagined, but maybe a messenger, a mirror, reflecting unseen aspects of ourselves, a carrier of buried memories, perhaps. It came maybe to teach you something important about your own inner world. Maybe the fear itself wasn't meant to scare me away entirely, but more to act as a kind of guide, pointing me towards something important I needed to look at.
That's a profound thought. Wholeness. It's not found in the absence of darkness or fear, is it? It's found in the courageous acceptance of all parts of ourselves, the light and the shadow. So carry this echo of the night with you today, gently. Let it whisper its quiet reminders when it needs to.
Okay.
I will.
And when night falls again, know that those landscapes of the unconscious, they wait. Not necessarily to frighten you anymore, but perhaps to welcome you home, to the deeper parts of yourself.